Why this group now, and do we risk sending them into the arms of China?
So what we're trying to do is, as the president explained at the cabinet meeting, is address these long-standing tariff and non-tariff barriers that have caused a lot of our manufacturing to be exported abroad. And what we're doing is methodically going through country by country. And for those for whom we're having robust conversations still, then those conversations are still ongoing. But we're also letting partner nations know that if they don't reach an agreement, there is a number that's going to go into effect as a result of us not coming to a deal. So this continues to be part of our ongoing discussions to incentivize countries to bring forth, again, not just their statutory tariff levels, but the non-tariff barriers that have impeded the ability of U.S. manufacturers and exporters to really access those markets.
What countries currently fall into that current robust conversations bucket?
So, the Secretary has mentioned that we're really focused one-on-one with the top 18 economies with which we do a lot of trade. So those negotiations are still, for the most part, in robust and ongoing. We already have a deal with the UK, but there are other conversations. Again, I'm always hesitant to get too far ahead of an announcement that the White House has not yet been made, but we continue to have very senior level conversations with our top trading partners to get to deals before August 1st.
We want to ask you about a lot more, including the president's big, beautiful bill that you're going to be traveling the country to implement. But in terms of that August 1st deadline, the president says it's not going to move. How many deals can you generate in just 20 some odd days?
Again, we have been having these conversations all the way since not just April 2nd, but since the beginning of the administration. And so there's enormous progress that have been made with many of these countries. And for some of them, it is just finalizing some of the terms of the framework. Now, obviously, the details of the trade agreement will be worked out well beyond August 1st, but a general framework is the objective to have by August 1st.
Well, when we consider, to Joe's point, the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill and how that's going to alter the revenue that the Treasury Department actually sees coming in, how are you factoring in the changes we're about to see take place now that this bill is law with what's going to happen in regard to tariffs and what that will do to the Treasury's coffers?
So a lot of what we have been communicating to the American people, not just back to the campaign, but as well this year, is that we really do need to think about the full implementation of the president's economic agenda. It is reworking these trade deals. It is the implementation of an extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as well as these additional pieces: no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, immediate expensing for factories. And then in addition to that, we've got the deregulatory agenda on which we continue to make progress. The combination of all of those things we see as generating significant economic growth, improvements in wages, and as a result, bringing down deficits over time. Couple that with the spending reductions. A lot of people don't talk about the $1.6 trillion in spending reductions that we have in the One Big Beautiful Bill, but also we have a rescissions package in front of the Congress right now, and there are more to come, provided that Congress works with us on this first rescissions package. So we need to make sure that we have robust economic growth to keep revenues growing. We need to get spending under control over time, and then in the process, bring down deficits. Couple that in with the tariff revenue that's coming in, and we're projecting that we are going to start getting our fiscal house in order.
Well, I'm fascinated by the job you have right now, because while everyone's, sort of celebrating the job being finished on Capitol Hill, yours is just beginning to implement this law. And of course, we've got a tax season to prepare for here with some major tax policy changes. How much time do you have to get this on the books? What's the next couple of months like for you?
So tax filing season opens in January, and we need to have everything implemented. So a lot of it gets backdated in the law to January 1st of this year, which means that when we open filing season next January, all of that needs to be implemented. But that's not really the deadline, because for many of these things, we need to get guidance out. We need to start doing taxpayer education and tax preparer education activities right now. And so we are rushing to make some policy decisions that were delegated to Treasury in this in the statutory language, and then get guidance out and get rulemaking completed. So for us at Treasury, implementation is a much bigger lift than the negotiation, and our work really started on Monday following the president signing the bill last Friday.
Well, of course, in addition to implementing changes to the tax code, the Treasury also has to enforce other things like sanctions, for example. And we know there is a live conversation happening, certainly in the U.S. Senate, spearheaded by Senator Lindsey Graham, around further sanctions on Russia. What are you hearing from leaders on Capitol Hill and from the White House about what role the Treasury might have to play in stricter sanctions enforcement moving forward.
Right. So as you both know, Treasury is where we implement sanctions and enforce them. One of the benefits of being the world's reserve currency is that because foreign countries and foreign financial institutions want access to our markets and our financial system, they are going to comply with any sanctions that we impose. And so they are one of the most important tools in the foreign policy toolkit of the president. And Treasury stands ready, irrespective of what we're ready to work with Congress. We continue to provide technical assistance, and if Congress enacts a law, we will go forward in implementing. But even if Congress does not proceed with it, we continue to work very closely with the National Security Council to identify ways that we can put even more leverage on the Russians to come to a deal. Because as the president has said, this war never should have started. We are going to see it brought to an end, and we are going to use our sanctions authorities to facilitate giving leverage to the president to bring a peaceful end, so that on both sides of that battle, we stop seeing the battlefield deaths that just never should have been had.
Okay, that's interesting, though. Does that mean that you're in touch with Senator Lindsey Graham or other leaders on the nuances around this legislation as it's being written?
Anytime the Treasury Department is impacted by a potential piece of legislation, we provide technical assistance, because ultimately we need to make sure that whether it's a tax law, whether it's sanctions, whether it's banking regulations, anything that hits Treasury authorities, we need to make sure that we are given the technical aspects of the law are going to allow us to do what we need to do. And so anytime there is a statute under consideration, we work closely with the staff of the authors of that legislation to make sure that we're given the authorities and the tools that we are needed in order to achieve the objective of the legislation. And that's a process known as technical assistance that's done in collaboration with the White House.
One final question before we let you go, sir. The president said on Truth Social today our Fed rate is at least 3 points too high. What would happen to the U.S. economy if the Fed were actually to cut rates by 300 basis points?
Well, again, what we're seeing is that inflation numbers are coming in well below what people thought they were going to be. We have not seen the tariffs that have been implemented so far being passed along in the form of higher prices. And, if you look at our interest rates in this country relative to the rest of the world, ours look rather high. And so, as the president has said, there is room for the Federal Reserve to reevaluate where they've currently got interest rates set. And if we bring down interest rates, that follows through to mortgage rates, that follows through to the rates of borrowing that we have at Treasury. Other than Social Security payments, debt service right now is the number 2 expenditure for the federal government. And if we can significantly bring down rates, then as we refinance the debt, we're going to be doing it at lower costs, and that's going to bring down, again, some of these fiscal deficits.